Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. Today I'm bringing you one of my very own spicy brews in Nethroi, Apex of Death. There are a ton of different ways you can build around Nethroi, and I did quite a bit of digging while building this list, but in the end I decided to go a little bit of my own direction, which I hope you find unique and fun to play. In this video I'll be doing an overview of the components to this build, including strategy, key cards, combos, interaction, and more. So if you enjoy reanimating your graveyard, tons of enter the battlefield triggers, and killing your opponents completely out of nowhere, get ready for Nethroi Apex of Death. As always, you can find the complete deck list listed in the link in the description below. I look over tons of cards while working on my commander builds, but I'm sure I've missed plenty of interactions and card possibilities. So if you have your own build of Nethroi or any ideas, please comment below. If this is your first time here, welcome. Brewing crazy and unique decks in Commander is my favorite part of Magic, so I decided to share them here on this channel. If you want to see more and to support the channel, please like, share, and subscribe. Alright, let's do this. Nethroi Apex of Death is a 5-mana 5/5 cat nightmare beast with Death Touch and Lifelink. While decent stats, it's Nethroi's Mutate ability that this deck cares about. Mutate is an alternate casting cost for Nethroi, in this case 7 mana, which will mutate Nethroi onto another creature you control. For those who aren't familiar, Mutate is basically an ability that blends Nethroi with another non-human creature you control. If I control this Birds of Paradise and I target it with Nethroi's Mutate ability, paying the 7 mana Mutate cost, the new creature will be a mix of both creatures in some fashion. I could either have a 5/5 flying bird, or I could have a 0/1 cat nightmare beast with Death Touch and Lifelink. When Nethroi mutates with another creature, his main ability will trigger, which reads, whenever this creature mutates, return any number of target creatures with total power 10 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. This will reanimate creatures from our graveyard, who collectively have a total power of 10 or less. In this deck, the goal is to put most, if not your entire graveyard, on the battlefield when you mutate with Nethroi. To capitalize on this, we want our deck's creatures to have relatively low power, and we want our cards in our deck to help mill our library into our graveyard. Okay, so before we go to the essentials of the deck, I want to discuss how we win the game, as I think those key cards are something to keep in mind as we go through the rest of the deck tech. This deck absolutely explodes on two particular creatures, Delny Streetwise Lookout and Preston the Vanisher. Delny essentially doubles all of the enter the battlefield triggers our creatures would have if their power is 2 or less. And Preston says that when a creature enters the battlefield, if it wasn't cast, create a 0/1 token copy of that creature. Well, all of our creatures are entering from the graveyard, which means they weren't cast, so Preston will make token copies of each of those creatures when they enter. And if these two enter the battlefield together, Delny will make Preston trigger twice for each creature entering, netting us 2 copies of each creature. And then when those copies enter, Delny will make each of those triggers happen a second time. Hopefully I haven't lost you yet. Okay, let's take these two and pair them with our win conditions. To start, we want to drain our opponents. To accomplish that, we use Corpse Knight and Wisp Drinker Vampire, both of which have similar triggers that say, whenever a creature we control enters the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life. To amplify this, we also play Saradoc, Master of Buckland. Saradoc says that when another non-token creature enters the battlefield under our control, create a 1/1 halfling creature token. This ability can be doubled by Delny, and each token can trigger Corpse Knight and Wisp Drinker Vampire for insane damage to the table. Additionally to draining our opponents, our deck may not look very scary in terms of power level until Sweet Gum Recluse comes into play. Not only is this spider a 0/3 that doesn't count towards our Nethroi power 10 or less cap, but the Recluse also puts counters on each creature that entered the battlefield this turn. So if you bring this guy back along with the rest of your graveyard, each creature gets 3 counters. If Delny comes into play with it, each creature gets 6 counters. If Preston comes into play with it, you'll get 2 copies of Sweet Gum, giving you 6 counters on each creature. And if you get Preston and Delany together with Sweet Gum, well, you get the idea. Okay, that's it for the deck's combos and main win cons, but we have a few more cards that can help beat up our opponents in the early to mid game while we're filling up our graveyard. Felithar in particular is a new addition that makes our high toughness creatures more of a threat and can draw us cards. Forgotten Ancient is a great staple to beef up the team, and Bedrock Tortoise helps protect our team during our turn. Giggling Skitterspike can start hitting our opponents very hard after it becomes monstrous, and White of the Reliquary is a unique threat in that it can attack and block in the early and mid game, but also helps us find our particular land drops by sacrificing creatures who we've already had their enter the battlefield triggers happen. Watchful Radstag is another unique threat in that we can trigger Evolve pretty naturally with the majority of our deck, and that will create copies of the Radstag. As you can guess, the amount of stags you can create off of just casting your creatures will get completely out of control. Card draw in this deck is pretty low because our card advantage actually comes from milling our deck. I do have the staple walls in here to cantrip, along with Flump to help support against flying threats, and Guardian Project can be an insane card draw when your graveyard reanimates. Yawgmoth is a personal favorite card of mine. He's card advantage, a sack outlet, and removal all in one. While you're building up your graveyard from milling cards, you'll be casting creatures into play to get their ETB triggers, and Yawgmoth helps put those creatures back in the graveyard to be reanimated again. Speaking of milling, I won't go through every mill creature in this deck, but there are a ton of them. And the overall theme is entering the battlefield, milling a good bit of cards. Cards like Satyr Wayfinder and Shigeki help put cards in our graveyard, but also give us the lands for our land drop each turn. Hermit Druid is an absolute powerhouse, since we're 3 colors and play minimal basic lands. Kaga and Snarling Gorehound give us card selection while we mill, and Aftermath Analyst can help us ramp in the mid game. While the majority of the deck is creatures, Mesmeric Orb and Out of the Tombs help speed up the deck's milling strategy exponentially. Eternal Witness, Alkalite of Affliction, and Skullwinder are here to help pick up these cards if they get milled, and 6 can actually help recast them from the graveyard while milling us and getting lands to our hand. Our other creatures either support us in mana acceleration, milling, or both. Since Nethroi's Mutate ability is 7 mana, I wanted to ensure that we had enough ways to produce 7 mana or get to 7 mana. Feybarrow Elder, Leafkin Druid, and Somberwald Sage give us a big boost in mana production. Blossoming Tortoise, while 3 power, is too good to pass up, since it mills and returns lands on ETB and attacking. And Tato Farmer shines for more mill and getting lands into play. We do play interaction in this deck because obviously we're a little cold to cards like Rest in Peace and Scavenging Ooze. Plenty of low power creatures that either detain threats or destroy them. Spike Weaver in particular shines as a fog effect until we're ready to reanimate. Lastly, I do play a few lands worth noting in Cavern of Souls and Field of the Dead. Cavern helps you mutate freely without worrying about getting countered to ensure that you can reanimate on your turn. And with all of our abilities to make land drops and pull lands from the graveyard, Field of the Dead gives us more bodies to mutate onto while supporting our win conditions. And that's Nethroi Apex of Death. What do you think of the deck? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next brew.